In the vast expanse between imagination and infinity, two forces awaken. One born of willpower, a guardian of emerald light who shapes the universe through sheer conviction, Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern. The other, a master of the shadowed game, who wields cards not as toys, but as seals of cosmic destiny, Yugi, the Pharaoh's heir, the king of games. On a shattered world caught between magic and matter, their realities collide. The power ring hums with limitless energy. The Millennium Puzzle glows with ancient judgment. And as the sky fractures with colors no human eye has ever seen, a voice echoes across dimensions. In this arena, belief itself becomes the weapon. The stage is set. The cards are drawn. The green light burns, and destiny prepares to deal its final hand. This is Arena of the Impossible. Yugi versus the Green Lantern. The void had no color, no sound, no concept of time, until something began to breathe. A single heartbeat, faint yet eternal, pulsed through the emptiness. Each echo painted new layers of reality, streaks of green light and gold hieroglyphs, drifting like ink in water. From their collision, a storm began to form. At the eye of that storm, two relics spun in orbit: the Millennium Puzzle and the Green Lantern's power ring. Both objects radiated energy older than the civilizations that worshipped them. One spoke in whispers of destiny and duel, the other in tones of duty and will. But today, their voices overlapped. The void cracked. The puzzle's golden shards realigned themselves into a perfect pyramid, its inner glow pulsing like a trapped sun. The power ring flared in answer, flooding the nothingness with green radiance so intense it carved paths through the dark. Two realities intertwined: the ancient magic of the Pharaoh and the cold science of the guardians of Oa. What emerged was neither dream nor universe, but a battleground built by the will of both. A planet coalesced out of dust and memory, a desert strewn with fragments of forgotten monuments and broken satellites. Twin moons hung in its violet sky, and beneath their ghostly light, two shapes descended from opposing horizons. The first fell like a comet of emerald fire, landing with a thunderous impact that rippled across the sand. Emerald light forged armor around him, a manifestation of the Green Lantern Corps' infinite discipline. Hal Jordan rose, eyes reflecting the glow of his own willpower. His ring hummed as it scanned the strange terrain, translating its energies, probing for life. But what it found defied every known spectrum. A voice regal yet human drifted from the other side of the dunes. So this is the realm that answers both gods and men. From a shimmer of light stepped Yugi, his cloak rippling like ink in a cosmic breeze. The Millennium Puzzle hung against his chest, glowing softly as if alive. But when he lifted his gaze, his eyes no longer belonged to the boy who loved dueling. They burned with the ancient judgment of Atom, the spirit pharaoh within. Hal raised his ring. Identify yourself. Energy readings show quantum magic overlap, unstable and dangerous. Yugi's voice was calm, resonant, layered. I am Yugi, heir to the Shadow Games. Your ring trembles before truth it cannot measure. The air rippled. Magic circles of gold expanded beneath Yugi's feet, inscribed with runes that rearranged themselves faster than thought. Hal's visor lit up with thousands of error codes as the power ring struggled to categorize what it saw. Reality warping detected. Unknown dimensional source. Threat level undefined. Hal clenched his fist. The green light flared outward, forming a shield that rippled like liquid glass. You're in violation of interdimensional stability protocols. I can't let you distort this realm. Yugi's eyes narrowed. I am not the distortion lantern. I am its consequence. The ground shuddered as if their words carried mass. Columns of sand rose and froze midair, sculpted into monstrous figures, half divine, half mechanical. In the distance, ancient duel arenas materialized, half buried in glass and fire. Above them, constellations rearranged themselves into the Eye of Horus, blinking once as if the heavens themselves were watching. Hal's ring reacted instantly. Energy surge detected, threat magnitude increasing. A glowing card appeared in Yugi's hand, spinning slowly. Its surface shimmered between paper and plasma. Then let us see how your will compares to fate. He pressed it to the ground. The planet screamed. From beneath the cracked surface rose Obelisk the Tormentor, a titan of blue muscle and divine rage, roaring as if it remembered its own death. Lightning of godly origin split the sky. Sand melted into glass. Hal Jordan stared in disbelief. What the hell is that? A god of battle, Yugi answered. One who has slept too long? Hal's instincts screamed. His ring formed a massive gauntlet, blocking a descending fist the size of a transport ship. The impact cratered the earth, sending waves of molten sand rippling outward. Hal countered, conjuring an enormous hammer of green light, smashing into Obelisk's jaw. The blow barely made the giant blink. Power levels? Incomprehensible, Hal muttered. Ring, amplify output to 400%. Warning, exceeding emotional threshold. Do it. The emerald aura exploded, shaping itself into an entire mecha construct around him. A colossal Green Lantern avatar mimicking his movements. Hal charged forward, striking the god square in the chest. The collision turned the night into day. For an instant, it seemed the lantern might prevail. Then Yugi raised another card, eyes glinting. Multiply! Obelisk's image fractured into a dozen copies, each roaring in unison. Hal's construct faltered as the ring strained to identify targets. The mecha was torn apart by blows from every direction. Hal crashed into the sand, armor fading, breathing hard. Yugi approached slowly, the storm quieting behind him. Do you see now, Lantern? Power means nothing without purpose. Hal looked up, grinning despite the blood on his lip. You sound like a guardian. But they forgot the same thing you just did. Purpose means nothing without will. He raised his fist again. The ring pulsed. A beam of pure green light lanced skyward, tearing through clouds, through stars, until it pierced the veil of dimensions itself. Space folded. A voice, mechanical and divine, answered from the breach. Constructs inbound. Dozens of Green Lantern constructs descended from the sky. Not real core members, but light-made echoes, copies summoned by Hal's will. Each formed shapes of armored warriors, blades drawn, eyes burning green. Across from them, Yugi's puzzle glowed brighter. Cards floated from his deck in perfect orbit, forming an array like a halo. Each flipped over, revealing the faces of dragons, magicians, and gods. Two armies stood on either side of a broken world. The desert wind howled. The duel had begun, and in that instant the arena of the impossible drew its first breath. Two mythologies, two champions, two wills that refused to kneel. Magic and light, science and soul. The stars dimmed to witness the battle no realm had ever dared to host. The desert wind fell silent. Every grain of sand seemed to wait. The sky above turned a deep emerald, streaked with lightning that flashed in the shape of sigils. Not natural storms, but the visible expression of Hal Jordan's will. Below, his armor reconstructed itself from light, wrapping around his form like living flame. The Green Lantern core symbol pulsed on his chest, glowing with renewed purpose. Across the scorched battlefield, Yugi Muto, or rather Atom, the pharaoh within, stood motionless, his cloak whipping in the rising gale. The Millennium Puzzle flared brighter with each heartbeat, golden lines tracing across the desert floor, creating an intricate dueling seal the size of a city. It wasn't mere summoning, it was law being rewritten. Hal's voice broke the silence first, calm but resolute. Yugi Muto, you've brought gods into a mortal plane. If I let this continue, this dimension collapses. Yugi's tone was regal, his words cutting like scripture. Then you should fight harder, Lantern, for even gods must answer when the duel begins. The power ring hummed in Hal's ear. Emotional spectrum stable, power levels restored, construct capacity unlimited. Hal smirked. Let's make this fair then. He thrust his fist forward. Emerald light exploded outward in geometric perfection, forming dozens of constructs, each a projection of his will and memory. From one burst of light emerged a towering emerald knight, wielding a broadsword forged of green plasma. From another came a fighter jet looping through the air, leaving contrails of energy that shaped themselves into missiles. Hundreds more followed. Armored beasts, drones, sentinels, entire squadrons of lantern energy given form. The desert glowed green as if reborn under an alien sun. Yugi raised his hand. The cards circling him slowed, suspended midair, shimmering between matter and spirit. Each one pulsed with the weight of history, memories of every duel ever fought. Then I shall meet your light with shadow. He flicked a card into the air. It burst into a pillar of gold. Come forth, dark magician. A purple vortex spun open beside him, lightning crackling around its edges. From it emerged a cloaked figure, tall, imposing, staff in hand, his eyes burning with arcane intelligence. The dark magician raised his weapon, purple light swirling at the tip. Another card fell from Yugi's hand, landing at his feet. And now I summon Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer. Steel and magic merged. A warrior in obsidian armor leapt from the light, his blade glowing red. They took formation beside their master, facing Hal's glowing army. The air between them shimmered with pressure. Two worlds had become one. Ring, Hal whispered. Focus all constructs on the largest targets first. Prioritize suppression. Confirmed. The sky screamed. Hundreds of emerald constructs surged forward in synchronized attack patterns, streaks of light weaving through the air. Missiles of pure willpower detonated mid-flight, forming webs of energy. But the dark magician raised his staff, spinning it once before slamming it into the ground. Purple runes erupted across the battlefield, forming barriers that absorbed the green blasts, turning them into crystal dust. Hal's visor flashed warning symbols. Counter-resonance detected. Magic frequency beyond calculable range. Then calculate harder. He thrust his hand upward. A massive construct took shape. A green lantern dragon, wings of light, eyes burning with focus. It roared, its sonic tremor reshaping the dunes beneath. Attack! The dragon dove toward the magician. Yugi's eyes blazed. Magician! Dark burning attack! The dark magician raised his staff, drawing upon the golden energy of the puzzle. A spiral of violet and gold erupted from the tip, colliding with the green dragon's breath of plasma. The impact tore through sound and sense alike, a sphere of light expanding, swallowing everything in its path. Sand vaporized into glass, The blast painted the world in colors beyond the human spectrum. When the glare subsided, both dragon and magician stood, smoking, barely intact, yet unyielding. "He adapts too fast," Hal muttered. "He learns as he fights." The ring's voice pulsed in his mind. "Subject exhibits dual consciousness, combat strategy evolving beyond linear logic." "Then let's evolve too." Hal pressed his hand to the ground. Energy coursed into the sand, transforming it into a glowing green lattice that expanded outward. A lantern field, rewriting the terrain itself. "Arena synchronization at 80%, the ring confirmed. Emerald towers burst from the ground, forming walls, ramps, and platforms in a perfect grid. The very battlefield now responded to Hal's command. He leapt upward, landing on a platform as his constructs repositioned in symmetrical formation. "Welcome to my world, Pharaoh." Yugi smiled faintly. "Then you shall face mine." The puzzle pulsed once more. The dueling seal beneath him shifted, glowing brighter, the ancient eye of Wujat opening fully. The sand turned gold. Obelisks of light rose from the earth. The field of the shadow game awakened. A new sound echoed, whispering voices of spirits bound within cards, murmuring in forgotten tongues. The air thickened with the weight of souls. Hal felt it instantly, the heaviness of unseen eyes watching, judging. "What is this pressure?" "The souls of every duel fought in history," Yugi answered softly. "They gather to witness truth, the desert, the sky, the stars, all dissolved into a void of gold and green." Reality was no longer stable. The two fields, technological and mystical, had merged, forming something new. A hybrid battlefield, pulsing like a living heart. Each heartbeat sent shockwaves of emerald and gold rippling outward. Every heartbeat meant power, and every pulse screamed one message: only one will can define reality. Hal clenched his fist, light surging. "Then I'll show you will without limit." A dozen green constructs surrounded him. Warriors, beasts, machines, each one a memory of his battles across the stars. He rose into the air, eyes burning bright. "Construct squadron, formation alpha." Emerald light converged. A colossal construct mech assembled around him again. Larger, sharper, its edges humming with energy, drawn directly from his emotional spectrum. Within its cockpit of pure thought, Hal's focus became godlike. Across the field, Yugi raised his puzzle to the heavens. "By the light of Ra, let the ancient spirits answer." Thunder cracked, the sky split open. A blinding surge of golden flame erupted, taking form as a winged figure. The winged dragon of Ra, divine and furious, descending in a spiral of molten light. Its roar silenced the cosmos. Hal looked up, squinting through the glare. "That's not possible." "In this arena," Yugi replied, his voice echoing across time, "impossible is the only rule that matters." Ra's flames met the lantern's light in midair. The explosion that followed shattered the sound barrier 100 times over. Planets trembled in distant systems. The battlefield became a storm of living energy. Green and gold entwined, devouring each other, birthing shadows that whispered prophecy. Amidst the chaos, both champions stood, unyielding, unbroken. Their eyes locked. Neither blinked. "You fight like a god," Hal said. "You judge like one," Yugi answered. "But I fight for the human soul." "Then you'll find mine harder than any soul you faced." The storm grew louder, swallowing the stars. And somewhere, in the dark between worlds, the arena whispered its approval. Two forces, infinite will. The battle has only begun. For a long moment, neither champion moved. The air hung thick with ozone and divine heat. The scorched battlefield pulsed with leftover energy. A sickly fusion of green plasma, and golden flame. Above them, the winged dragon of Ra hovered, molten wings unfurled like an eclipse. Across from it, Hal Jordan's lantern construct titan stood, its glowing armor cracked and flickering from strain. The arena itself seemed to breathe, a wounded god whispering between dimensions. Hal's ring dimmed briefly, its steady hum now laced with static. "Warning," the synthetic voice echoed. "Emotional instability detected. Spectrum interference. Unidentified." Hal frowned, shaking his hand as if to clear static. "Clarify, is it the Pharaoh's magic?" "Negative. Intrusion source internal." The statement chilled him more than the desert's cold wind. "Internal? What are you saying?" "Your willpower is fluctuating. Fear resonance detected, 3% increase." Hal exhaled through his teeth. He'd been here before. Every lantern had. The line between courage and fear was razor thin. But on this world, under this impossible pressure, the balance was crumbling faster than ever. He looked across the battlefield to where Yugi stood amid swirling dust and light. The boy's form seemed less human now, his silhouette overlaid with another, taller, older, wearing the crown of a long-dead king. The pharaoh was stirring. "Your power trembles," Yugi said, voice layered, echoing both his own and Atom's at once. "Even your light feels the pull of darkness." Hal's jaw clenched. "You talk like you've never felt fear." "I ruled an empire built on it," the pharaoh answered. "But unlike you, I do not let it command me." The words struck deep. The ring pulsed again, its green glow warping toward amber for the briefest moment. A flicker like the blink of a predator's eye. The ground cracked. A wave of alien energy rolled outward, distorting the sand into spines of glass. Hal staggered backward, clutching his chest as the power ring emitted a piercing tone. Alert. Fear spectrum resonance increasing. Yellow energy signatures emerging. Emotional containment failing. "No," Hal growled, his voice raw. "I'm in control." The ring's glow flared again, green bleeding into gold. Until, for one horrifying instant, the symbol of the Green Lantern core shifted into that of the Sinestro core. Across the battlefield, Yugi's eyes widened. The Millennium Puzzle pulsed in warning, its chains rattling like metal, reacting to unseen gravity. "I know this energy," he whispered. "Hatred, terror, the energy of the shadow realm." The puzzle reacted instinctively, projecting a golden barrier between Yugi and Hal. Its hieroglyphs twisted and rearranged into warnings, ancient Egyptian words for fear, deception, and soul fracture. "Lantern!" Yugi shouted across the storm. "Your will is being poisoned." "I said I'm fine," Hal roared. The words weren't entirely his own. The voice that followed was deeper, distorted, something that lived in the corners of his mind. "You are strong, Hal Jordan," it whispered. "But strength without fear is hollow. Let me show you what true power feels like." The sand rose like waves around him, spiraling upward as green light darkened to yellow. Images flickered in the glow. Faces of the dead, of fallen comrades, of worlds he'd failed to save. "Sector 2814, murmured one of the ghosts. "You were supposed to protect us." Hal screamed, falling to his knees as the images swarmed him. The power ring crackled violently, projecting monstrous shapes, constructs made not of will, but of terror. Emerald knights warped into demonic forms, their eyes glowing sulfur yellow. Jets of light turned into flocks of razor-winged birds that screamed in his voice. The very energy that once obeyed his will now mocked it, feeding on his emotion. Across from him, Yugi raised the puzzle high, its glow cutting through the golden storm. "So this is your test, Lantern," he said quietly. "You face your own darkness, as I once faced mine." He drew a card, its edges burned with crimson flame. "Then allow me to balance the scales." He placed the card upon the ground, and a new shape emerged from the dust. A towering creature, clad in silver and black, eyes glowing like twin suns. Summoned skull, arise! Thunder cracked as the demon appeared, electricity snaking along its horns. It stepped between Hal and Yugi, roaring as if challenging the corrupted constructs. The two energies collided, yellow and violet, fear and wrath, sending arcs of raw emotion spiraling into the sky. Inside the chaos, Hal's breathing quickened. "Ring, re-establish primary spectrum. Override yellow contamination." "Denied," the ring responded. "User emotional threshold exceeded, suggesting containment via external stabilization." "Meaning?" "You cannot fight this alone." Hal looked up through the storm, eyes meeting Yugi's. For the first time since their battle began, there was no anger there, only recognition. "You think I need your help?" Hal shouted, forcing his feet to steady. "No," Yugi said, stepping closer, his cloak torn by the wind. "You need balance." The Millennium Puzzle pulsed again, its aura expanding to cover them both. For a heartbeat, Hal's corrupted constructs hesitated, as if the ancient artifact's light reached even their twisted cores. "You fight to control your fear," Yugi said, his voice half man, half god. "But fear cannot be destroyed. It must be understood." "I don't have time for philosophy," Hal spat. "Then you will have eternity for regret," Adam's voice boomed. The puzzle blazed white-hot. For a moment, the golden aura wrapped around Hal, filtering through the ring itself. Within that burning halo, visions unfolded, not of battle, but of memory. Hal saw himself, a young pilot, reckless, fearless, desperate to prove himself to a world that demanded perfection. He saw his father's death, the explosion, the guilt, the silence that followed. Fear had never left him. It had only changed its shape. He fell to his knees. The ring's glow flickered between green and yellow, as if caught between two heartbeats. Hal Jordan. The puzzle's voice echoed through his mind, speaking in the tone of the pharaoh. "You are not unworthy. You are unfinished." Hal raised his head slowly. Tears cut streaks through the dust on his face. The yellow hue around his ring dimmed, replaced once more by green. The corrupted constructs shattered into sparks. The sky cleared. The pressure vanished. Yugi stepped forward, lowering his hand. "You faced your shadow," he said softly. "Few ever do, and return whole." Hal exhaled, gripping the ring tightly. "And you just saved my life?" Yugi's gaze hardened. "No, Lantern, I saved your soul. The battle is not over." As if in answer, the sky split once more. This time not by emotion, but by intent. A new energy surged across the horizon, cold, metallic, unfeeling. The sands trembled as something vast descended through the clouds. A fleet of glowing constructs, not made by Hal's hand. The Guardians of Oa had arrived. Their voices thundered in unison across the plain. Unauthorized emotional fluctuation detected. Lantern, Hal Jordan, stand down. The anomaly known as Yugi Muto will be contained. Hal's heart sank. "No, not now." Yugi turned, his eyes blazing gold. "They seek to judge me?" "They judge everything," Hal muttered bitterly. Above them, the sky filled with emerald ships, their hulls carved with runes of order and obedience. The arena of the impossible trembled, its fragile balance now threatened not just by gods or monsters, but by the cold logic of the universe itself. And thus the light that fed on fear gave way to the dawn of judgment. In the next breath, the gods of order would descend, And for the first time, the arena would face something it could not understand. Law without heart. Every constellation above them dimmed beneath the glow of incoming vessels. Titanic, geometric, precise. They moved not like machines, but like ideas given form, obeying laws written in mathematics older than time itself. The guardians of Oa had come. Their fleet blanketed the horizon, emerald monoliths shaped from pure willpower, powered by billions of souls across the galaxy. Each one thrummed with perfect rhythm. Each one radiated one purpose only: enforce the code. The sand beneath Yugi's feet trembled as the first ship descended. Pillars of light struck the desert floor, forming perfect circles that branded the land with alien script. The air filled with a sound like crystal shattering underwater. Then silence. From the nearest column emerged a figure, small in stature, yet colossal in presence. Pale blue skin, robes of light, eyes that had seen the birth and death of universes. A guardian. Dozens followed, floating above the ground, hands clasped behind their backs. Their voices merged into one symphonic monotone that felt less spoken than imposed upon the mind. Lantern Hal Jordan, you have violated the spectrum equilibrium. You have merged emotional frequencies forbidden by decree of OA. You will submit for judgment. Hal clenched his jaw, lowering his gaze but not his will. The power ring flickered on his hand, uncertain whether to bow or defend. I contained it, he said through gritted teeth. The contamination's gone, the threat's neutralized. The Guardian's gaze shifted to Yugi. Incorrect, the source remains active. Yugi's cloak rippled in the alien wind. His eyes, Adam's eyes, burned gold. You speak as though power itself were a disease. But I have seen your kind before. You are priests who fear their own gods. The Guardians regarded him without emotion. Entity unidentified. Composition mixed metaphysical and quantum resonance. Category dimensional hazard. Translation, Hal muttered under his breath. They think you're a virus. Containment is mandatory, the voices continued. The anomaly threatens universal structure. Yugi raised the Millennium Puzzle, its glow casting long shadows across the sand. And yet, your structure trembles before a single soul. Hal stepped forward, ring raised slightly. Hold on, he's not your enemy. You sent me to investigate dimensional breaches. This is it. The source isn't hostile. You were ordered to report, not interpret, one Guardian said. Your emotional interference is noted. You will stand down. The ring pulsed in warning. Command override detected. Primary control transferred to OA. Hal's armor dimmed as his ring's light flickered under the Guardian's override. His breath hitched. They're shutting me down. Then resist, Yugi said quietly. A warrior who kneels for law cannot stand for truth. You don't understand, Hal whispered. They made the ring. They are the law. Then perhaps, Adam's voice rumbled from within him, it is time the law be judged. The sky screamed again, emerald lightning splitting clouds in half. The Guardians raised their hands in unison. Above them, the fleet responded. Beams of green light converged on Yugi's position, forming a containment sphere as bright as a newborn star. Hal staggered backward from the blast, his visor darkening automatically. When the light faded, Yugi stood within the sphere, motionless. Chains of solid light wrapped around him, binding his arms and neck, linking into the ground. Each link pulsed with mathematical rhythm, designed to nullify not just energy but concepts. Containment successful, the Guardians said in harmony. Reality anomaly neutralized. Hal looked up, horror dawning. You can't. He's alive. He's not a construct or weapon, "He is an equation that disobeys itself," the guardians replied. "Correction is mercy." Within the sphere, Yugi's eyes opened slowly. They were no longer just his. The pharaoh's spirit blazed behind them. "You seek to bind a soul with geometry," Atum said, his voice echoing across time. "You speak of order, yet wield chains born of fear." The golden light from the puzzle began to pierce the sphere's surface, dripping like molten sunfire. Runes on the ground started to unwrite themselves. Hal stared in disbelief. "He's breaking Owen containment." "Impossible," a guardian said. "No being has ever." The sand erupted. The sphere shattered into fragments of emerald glass, which hung frozen in the air for a heartbeat before melting into dust. Atum stepped through the ruin, unscathed, the puzzle glowing like the core of a star. "I have endured millennia of darkness," he said. "Your light does not blind me. It trembles before the soul." For the first time, the guardians hesitated. Their collective voice fractured slightly, overlapping frequencies faltering. Anomaly escalation. Reality distortion spreading. Dimensional overlap increasing beyond safe threshold. Hal's visor flooded with red warnings. "They're destabilizing the arena. If this keeps going, this world will collapse," Yugi finished, "unless balance is restored." He turned to Hal. "Lantern, your law is built upon fear of failure, mine upon fear of chaos. Both will destroy us if we cling to them." "So what do you propose?" Hal asked. "We forge a new law, one that understands both will and soul." The guardians raised their voices, louder now, vibrating through every molecule of air. "Violation confirmed. Lantern Hal Jordan compromised. You stand accused of heresy against the Spectrum Codex." Hal's ring flared in panic. "They're revoking my oath. Then make a new one," Yugi said. For a moment, the world stopped breathing. The puzzle glowed gold. The ring glowed green. And between them, light bent, twisting, merging, singing. A new spectrum was born. It wasn't green. It wasn't gold. It was emerald dawn. A perfect fusion of logic and emotion, of order and destiny. The arena itself seemed to pulse in awe, recognizing something that transcended even its own law. The guardians recoiled. "This energy is unrecorded, prohibited. It must be." Hal raised his fist. "No more decrees." The combined light burst outward, sweeping across the desert like a living sun. The guardians' constructs dissolved in the wave, their ships losing coherence. For the first time, the voices of Oa faltered. "What are you?" Hal looked at Yugi. "Something you can't quantify. Something you forgot how to be," Yugi added softly. "Alive." The blast cleared. The sky, once emerald, now shone gold-green, a tranquil equilibrium. The Guardians' fleet retreated into the upper atmosphere, their telepathic link silent for the first time in eternity. Hal fell to one knee, exhausted. "That was insane." "No," Yugi said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That was balance." The puzzle's glow faded, its chain settling against his chest. The power ring, still humming faintly, projected a soft light around them both, not as weapon, but as understanding. "The arena of the impossible," Yugi murmured, looking to the horizon. "It is not a place of war. It is a mirror." Hal looked up. "Then what's it showing us?" The Pharaoh's voice answered. "That even gods must learn humility, and even mortals can redefine eternity." Above them, the remnants of the Guardians' fleet vanished into the black. But their departure left behind something unseen, a distortion in the stars, a fracture, a door. Through it, something vast was beginning to stir. The light flickered once, and the arena whispered again, a sound like thunder across infinity. "Judgment has passed, but something else awakens. The hand that writes the laws now reaches for the quill." For several heartbeats there was peace. The desert no longer boiled with divine energy. The sky, fractured moments ago, hung still and clear, painted in strange hues, green bleeding into gold, gold fading into deep cosmic violet. The aftermath shimmered with beauty that did not belong to any universe. Hal Jordan knelt upon the cooling sand, the faint glow of his ring fading to a calm pulse. Beside him, Yugi Muto, or the pharaoh that lived within, stood silent, eyes closed, breathing in the silence as if it were sacred. For the first time, they were not warriors. They were witnesses. "Do you hear that?" Hal asked. The pharaoh opened his eyes. At first, there was nothing. No sound, no wind. Then came a vibration too deep to be heard, a tone that lived inside thought. The sand rippled as if alive. Mountains in the distance crumbled into dust. And in the heavens, the constellations began to move. Not drift, not rotate, move. Entire galaxies rearranged themselves like chess pieces on an infinite board. Every star bent toward a single invisible center. Yugi's puzzle flared with violent light. Hal's ring screamed warnings. Dimensional constant shifting, it blared. Origin point unknown. Power scale immeasurable. "It's not an attack," Yugi whispered. "It's a call." The horizon tore open. A tear in space, vast and luminous, bled white fire into the void. The light was neither holy nor profane. It was raw creation, matter forming faster than the mind could process. Through it, they saw glimpses of impossible worlds, cities made of music, oceans of living memory, galaxies orbiting thoughts instead of suns. From within that rift, something looked back. It was not a creature, nor a god, nor a face. It was awareness folding upon itself, infinite and still. Every grain of sand vibrated to its silent question. "Who dares balance law and soul without my hand?" The ground trembled. Yugi staggered, clutching the puzzle. Hal's armor disintegrated under the weight of the voice, the ring flickering like a candle in a storm. "Entity contact," the ring gasped. "Energy signature exceeds Guardians. Possibly creator class." "Creator?" Hal coughed. "You mean the source," Yugi said quietly, his voice trembling. "The mind that forged both our realities. From the rift emerged a shape, ever-changing, impossible to define. One moment it was a being of light, the next a shadow crowned in stars. Its voice echoed without sound, imprinting itself directly into thought. The balance you forged is forbidden. The laws you bent were written by me. Yugi took a step forward, his aura burning gold. Then perhaps your laws were flawed. The void seemed to shudder with amusement. Flawed? I am perfection, pharaoh of games. I am the equation that defines your destiny. Hal rose, forcing strength into his legs. If you define everything, then why make us at all? Because creation requires witnesses. Yet witnesses began to dream. The voice shifted, growing softer, almost curious. You are two such dreams, one forged in light, one in shadow. But now your balance threatens to awaken more than dream. The rift widened. Through it, Hal saw infinite versions of himself. Countless green lanterns across dimensions, each fighting, dying, being reborn. Through another fold, Yugi saw every duel he had ever fought, every card he had played, each moment replaying like reflections in a mirror that had no end. Each reflection began to bleed into the next. Hal's willpower crossed into another lantern's pain. Yugi's courage fused with the despair of another pharaoh. Their memories blurred until the arena itself began to warp, bending into a spiral of overlapping lives. It's merging timelines, Hal shouted. Every reality, lantern, duel, shadow, and beyond. It's rewriting history itself, Yugi answered. We've become the variables of a game, too vast for gods to finish. The entity's voice thundered again, reverberating through every heartbeat. "Return the balance. Undo what you have made, or I shall unmake you both." Hal clenched his fist. "I don't answer to tyranny, not even divine tyranny." The ring sparked defiantly, forming a faint shield around him. "And I," Yugi said, "have never folded to destiny. I play until the final card." The puzzle spun in his grasp, the hieroglyphs glowing brighter than ever before. A new symbol appeared in its center, one that had never existed in any scripture: an emerald eye surrounded by golden flame. The same symbol shimmered across Hal's chest, burned into the lantern insignia by forces beyond comprehension. The entity paused. "What have you done?" "We've created choice," Yugi said. "We've rewritten the rule," Hal added, his eyes blazing green. The rift erupted. Out poured storms of raw concept, colors no mortal had ever seen, shapes that existed between numbers, music that built architecture. Each wave reshaped the world again, dunes becoming mountains, ruins becoming living beings, sky folding into itself like origami. The arena screamed. Its foundations, memory, imagination, physics, all began to bend beneath the birth of this new equilibrium. Yugi and Hal stood at its center, both fading and glowing simultaneously. Their powers intertwined. One magic, one light, spinning around them like twin galaxies colliding. "You dare to create in my sight," the entity roared. "You dare to forge will without my command?" "Not without," Hal said, his voice steady. "Because of. You gave us fire," Yugi added, "but forgot why we burn." The light intensified, blinding and beautiful. Within it, the entity's form began to fracture, not in pain, but in transformation. Its infinite shape split into reflections, one vast and distant, one near and intimate. It was no longer omnipotent. It was present. "Then show me," the voice said softly now, its rage dissolving into curiosity. "Show me why mortals deserve the power to choose." Hal looked at Yugi. Yugi looked at Hal. "One last test," Yugi whispered. "Always is," Hal replied. They turned towards the rift, the blinding storm that had once been the boundary between universes. And together they stepped inside. Inside the rift was not space nor time. It was a thought, stretched infinite. They walked on memory, through rivers of consciousness, beneath skies made of lost prayers. Each step birthed new stars, which died the instant they looked back. They were becoming ideas, the will of light, the soul of shadow, walking side by side through the mind of God. And somewhere ahead, beyond the horizon of understanding, something awaited them. Not another battle, but a choice. They fell without falling. The rift did not swallow them so much as rewrite them, turning their bodies into letters of a language older than breath, then arranging those letters into meaning and motion. Hal Jordan became a sentence of light, verbs made of thrust and lift, clauses of trajectory and oath. Yugi, Atom, became a sentence of gold, subjects of memory, predicates of judgment, punctuation made of fate. The current carried them to a shoreline where the surf was made of ticking seconds. Waves broke and spilled entire lifetimes at their feet, receding as soon as they dared to look closely. Above the sky was parchment, and the constellations were ink still drying. A figure waited there, not the entity's immensity, but a fragment, an emissary shaped like a man with a quill for a spine, and eyes that reflected whatever stood before him. "Two paths," the emissary said, voice gentle and terrible. "Choose the world you will bequeath to every breath that follows yours." He raised his hands. The parchment sky tore along a straight seam, and the first vision flooded in. The first future, perfect order. Cities like cathedral circuits, every street a theorem, every roof aligned to constellations that never drift. No hunger. Algorithms feed every mouth. No war. Conflict is anticipated and pacified before it blooms. No error. Lives forecast to their quiet ends, the sum of 1,000,000 benign corrections. Hal felt the relief before he recognized it. This was the dream that lives in the marrow of cops and pilots alike. No crash because no risk, no sorrow because no surprise. Children grew without fear. Lanterns were archivists of a light that did not need defending. And yet he saw the shadows, not on the ground, but behind the eyes. People laughed on schedule, loved inside predictions, mourned with recommended durations. Art became accurate. Prayer became polite. Willpower atrophied because nothing required it. The green light dimmed to a museum glow. Yugi's mouth tightened. He raised a hand and the vision froze like a card he could study. Justice without struggle, he said softly, becomes anesthetic. Virtue without choice is just choreography. Hal exhaled, ashamed that part of him still ached for it. I could have slept here, he admitted, and never known I was asleep. The emissary blinked once, and the seam in the sky tore the other way. The second future, unfettered freedom. Color crashed like cymbals. Skies couldn't decide which blue to be, and so became all of them. Markets and mythologies elbowed each other in the streets. Inventions bloomed with the speed of rumor. Music argued with architecture and won. Here, will was sovereign. People erred magnificently. Art stabbed and healed in the same breath. Heroes arose because someone needed them at breakfast and was forgotten by supper. Lanterns burned brighter than stars and burned out faster than candles and wind. Yugi's heart swelled, atoms narrowed. Between festivals of kindness, famine threaded the map. Between revolutions, tyrants slipped back into chair and crown. The duel never ended because no hand would put the deck away. Shadow games bloomed without arbiters until they weren't games anymore. Hal's jaw clenched. This is my oath's nightmare, he said. Courage is chaos. People tested until they break. Adam's voice slid over Yugi's. And yet, choice is real here. Meaning costs something. Victory's taste of blood and bread. The vision shuddered, trying to decide whether it was a marvel or a wound. The emissary lowered his hands. Perfection without will without protection, choose. The word echoed like a gavel, the trial of the ring. The rift tightened to a chamber of mirrors where nothing reflected skin, only convictions. Hal stood alone, ring dim on his finger. Each mirror held a different Hal. The one who never crashed, the one who never forgave himself, the one who gave the ring back, the one who kept it even when it began to keep him. Sinestro stepped from one glass like a memory that had practiced becoming a man. You loved order, Sinestro said, gentle as a surgeon. You still do. Your oath is a fence, you call it a horizon. Hal wanted to swing. Instead, he breathed. Order without mercy becomes a prison. I've been the jailer. I've also been the key. The ring warmed. From another mirror, Carol crossed the threshold. Not accusation in her eyes, but ache. Hal, she said. Every time you chose the sky, you broke a heart, mostly your own. He smiled like a fracture. Then let my will protect their will, not replace it. The ring flared, not brighter, but truer. It stopped trying to be a weapon and remembered how to be a vow. The trial of the puzzle, elsewhere, if elsewhere still meant anything. Yugi stood under a ziggurat of gold, where every step was a duel he had fought. Atom circled him, neither outside nor inside, an orbit of lineage and law. You bound darkness with rules, Atom said. Would you bind life with them too? Yugi's hands trembled. He thought of every time the puzzle had decided for him. He thought of every time he had let it. "You save me," he told the spirit. "But if salvation becomes a habit, I forget how to swim." The puzzle grew heavy. Chains that had always felt like comfort suddenly sounded like doors closing. An image rose behind Atum. Pharaoh, king, judge, executioner. 1,000 verdicts that felt like mercy until the one that didn't. Yugi reached up and, for the first time, did not invoke the puzzle. He asked it, "Will you be my partner, not my parent?" The hieroglyphs shivered. The gold cooled. Atum bowed, not submission but respect. "Then we are two," the pharaoh said. "And because we are two, we may choose." The puzzle's light softened from command to consent. The third way. They returned to the shoreline of seconds. The emissary waited, Quill's spine gleaming. Hal and Yugi did not look at him. They looked at each other, and the exchange said what words could not. "I will not rule you. I will not abandon you." Hal raised his ring. Yugi raised his puzzle. Green and gold met and did not explode. They braided. Not a beam, not a blast, a weave. Each thread circled the other, making a rope that could pull or cradle, bind or lift, depending on the hand that held it. The emissary flinched, the smallest loss of composure, but did not interrupt. "Name your law," he said. Hal spoke first. "No choice revoked by law." Yugi followed. "No life revoked by choice?" Together, no judgment without witness, no will without cost, no destiny without consent. Their voices harmonized until the shoreline itself began to nod. The weave unfurled across the parchment sky and wrote itself into the constellations, not as decree, but as invitation. The emissary dipped his head. "The arena accepts your article." He vanished into punctuation. Above them, the two futures they had been shown did not disappear. They bent, each yielding a measure to the other. Streets adjusted to allow detours. Festivals hired guardians who answered to neighbors, not crowns. In classrooms, children learned oaths and how to break them when kindness required it. In courts, judges kept empty chairs for the absent who must someday be heard. The dual star, still unborn, shivered as if feeling a name approach. The cost. The entity's awareness returned, not scolding now, but weighing. "Every law you add demands a sacrifice." Hal nodded. "I know." The ring dimmed to half light. Raw power leached away, like blood willingly donated, leaving clarity in its wake. Constructs would take longer. Shields would fail sooner. But when they held, they would hold because he meant them, not because his battery did. Yugi placed a palm on the puzzle. Fine cracks spidered across its face. Not damage, but doors. "No more automatic verdicts," he said. "No more duels declared by the relic alone." Atum smiled, a king relieved to be a man again when he wished. "I will answer when called," the pharaoh said, "and be silent when I am not." The arena exhaled. Somewhere, a first sunrise happened for the 1,000th time and still felt new. The answer to the emissary's question. They stood where they had begun, on sand that kept time, under a sky ready to be written again. "So?" Hal said, rubbing his thumb across the ring like a rosary. "Which future did we choose?" Yugi watched the weave climb the heavens, green gold, steady. "Neither," he said. "We chose the present, the only place will and soul can touch." The emissary's voice reached them, as if from the margin of a page. "Then bear it. It will be heavier than either paradise or anarchy." Hal grinned, weary and glad. "Good." Yugi's eyes shone. "Good." The rift peeled back, revealing once more the desert world arena. Its dunes calmer, its horizons farther. In the distance, emerald ships of the Guardians held formation, not attacking, not retreating, waiting to see what these two mortals had written. Hal offered his hand. Yugi took it. Adam's hand was there too, and for once the three did not wrestle. They agreed. They stepped through. The first consequence. They emerged beneath a sky where a new constellation had appeared. A circle halved, emerald on one side, gold on the other, with a thin line not dividing but stitching them. The ground answered that sky. From a fault in the plain, light surged like water. It pooled and lifted, taking the shape of a star still soft with birth. Its corona was not fire, but promise. "The dual star," Yugi breathed, awe and alarm entwined. Hal shaded his eyes. "That wasn't us." The emissary's whisper, pleased and distant. "Creation copies courage." The star pulsed once. Hal's ring hummed in reply. The puzzle warmed against Yugi's heart. All across the arena, dormant things woke. Ruins remembered songs. Broken machines asked to be forgiven. Shadows learned how to be shade without being prison. Balance was not quiet. It was music learning its second melody. Hal and Yugi stood in the first bar. The hook for what comes next. The Guardian's fleet drifted lower, not to impose but to listen. In their council's words, long exiled returned. Mercy, revision, trust. In the far dark, a yellow eye narrowed. Sinestro considering whether a world with braver courage might yet frighten better. Above the dual star, a shape turned over in sleep. It had been called God before. It might accept a humbler name now. The arena of the impossible whispered, like a stadium realizing it has become a school. They chose weight, give them gravity. The dunes began to shake. Something old, older than Oa, older than the Millennium Tombs, older than the habit of winning, rolled beneath the surface and rose. Its roar was not challenge but question. Hal raised his ring, dimmer but honest. Yugi raised his puzzle, cracked but kind. Together, we answer. The ground trembled again, but this time it wasn't anger that moved the earth. It was curiosity. Grains of sand rolled together like thoughts forming words. The desert rippled, spiraled, and finally cracked open to reveal light. From beneath that light came a shape, massive, ancient, and slow, lifting itself from eternity like a creature remembering that it once had a body. It rose until it blotted out the horizon. A titan of translucent stone and starlight, veins pulsing with entire galaxies. Its face neither beast nor human, but a sculpture of wonder and doubt. Each movement took minutes, as if it debated every motion before committing to it. Its eyes, two suns of pale blue, regarded the pair standing below. Hal's ring flickered weakly, sensing no hostility but infinite mass. Yugi felt the puzzle grow lighter, almost reverent. They were standing before something older than the laws they had just rewritten. The Titan spoke, and the world dimmed to listen. Its voice was deep enough to shake atoms apart. "You have changed the syntax of reality. Do you understand what you have written?" Hal lifted his chin, his body vibrating under the sound. "We understand enough to stand by it." "Do you?" the Titan asked, tilting its enormous head. "Then tell me, what gives meaning to balance if not imbalance? Why build bridges if the shores vanish?" The air thickened. The Titan's words were questions shaped as pressure. They pressed against thought itself. Hal and Yugi staggered but did not fall. Yugi spoke first, his voice steady, ancient wisdom threading through it. "Because the act of bridging is what makes us real. A balance that moves, not freezes. That is our law." The Titan's chest glowed faintly. "Then show me movement." It struck the ground with one hand, and the desert rose in waves like water hit by thunder. The dunes hardened into crystalline blades, towers, and chasms. The sky shattered into shards of light. The arena reshaped itself into a labyrinth of questions, each step a challenge of physics and faith. Hal's ring burned bright, though weaker now. Looks like it doesn't want words. Yugi's smile was thin but calm. Then we'll answer in kind. They moved as one. Hal lifted off the ground, leaving a trail of green light that bent the storm around him. The ring conjured shapes, not of war, but of thought. Fractals, equations, bridges of light crossing impossible distances. Yugi followed, summoning creatures that were not mere monsters, but concepts. The idea of defense, the embodiment of courage, phantoms of lessons learned through pain. The Titan swung its hand, and each finger became a mountain falling through the air. Hal caught one with an enormous construct shaped like a question mark turned into a spear. Yugi whispered a command, and the puzzle flared, projecting a circle of light that turned falling debris into constellations. The impact painted the sky in blinding color. Sound came late, a tidal wave of thunder that pushed dunes into the sea. The Titan watched them, unmoving. Then it spoke again. "You fight well. But your battle is still a sentence written in defense. Where is your curiosity?" Hal gritted his teeth. "You're testing us, not attacking." "I am testing the shape of your truth." Yugi raised the puzzle higher. Then let truth take shape. The air rippled, and suddenly the three of them were standing not on sand, but on the surface of memory itself. Around them floated moments. Hal's first flight, Yugi's first duel, every triumph and every failure replaying in translucent loops. Each memory turned toward them alive, watching, asking whether it had been worth existing. Hal looked at his younger self, proud and terrified in a cockpit. Yugi looked at his own hand, trembling as he held a card that had decided a friend's fate. The Titan leaned close, its voice a whisper that filled the cosmos. "Would you erase these pains to keep your law pure?" Hal's eyes closed. "No. Law without pain isn't justice." Yugi nodded slowly. "And victory without risk isn't meaning." The Titan paused. The stars inside its chest slowed, then rearranged. Its form softened, as if considering. "Then show me a victory that does not destroy." It raised both arms, and reality convulsed. A storm of raw matter descended. Planets condensed into fists, light compressed into blades. Hal's ring screamed warnings. Yugi's puzzle vibrated so violently it cracked the air itself. Hal looked at Yugi. "He wants proof we can win without killing him." "Then we show him harmony through force," Yugi said. "We fight not to end, but to teach." They moved together. Hal drew a shield the size of a world, bending gravity so that each impact of the Titan's assault transformed energy into rhythm instead of ruin. Yugi called upon the spirit of his monsters, not to attack, but to echo, the dark magician tracing sigils that match the lantern's light, the silent swordsman cutting through stray chaos to sculpt melody from noise. The storm became music, the battle a duet. Each strike from the Titan was answered by art. Each blast from Hal or Yugi built on what came before. Soon, even the Titan's motions changed. Slower, thoughtful, less violence than conversation. Finally, it stopped. One vast hand pressed against the desert, steadying itself as if bowing. The sound of creation calmed into silence again. "You understand the question," it said. "Not all answers require conquest." Hal floated down beside Yugi, exhausted, armor dim but heart steady. "We don't want conquest, we want continuity." The Titan's eyes dimmed to soft azure. "Continuity requires caretakers. I will remember this law, but remember, every law forgets why it was written. Its body began to dissolve into starlight, fragmenting into motes that drifted upward. Each mote carried the echo of its words, scattering wisdom across the arena's sky like seeds. Yugi looked up. Do you think it believed us? Hal smiled faintly. Doesn't matter, we believed us. They stood amid the quiet that follows creation. The desert lay flat again, but the wind hummed with residual melody, like the heartbeat of the new order they had forged. Above, the dual star pulsed once, brighter, as though taking note. A shadow crossed its light. Not sinister, simply unknown. Something vast moved behind the horizon, and its wake bent constellations. Hal squinted. More company? Yugi's puzzle flickered, warning, yearning. Not yet enemy, but coming. The arena's whisper returned, the same voice that had guided every impossible meeting before. Balance survives only when challenged. Another question approaches. Hal tightened his fist. Yugi adjusted his grip on the puzzle. Both smiled, not out of arrogance, but of readiness. The dunes glowed faintly green and gold beneath their feet, waiting for the next step, the next idea, the next impossible test. The arena exhaled. The horizon shifted. And somewhere beyond the new law's reach, a gate of blue fire began to open, promising that the story, like will and soul, had only just learned how to begin again. The wind grew still again, unnaturally still, as though time itself was holding its breath. Hal and Yugi stood at the edge of the desert, their shadows long under the newborn light. The blue fire that had flickered beyond the dunes began to spread, not like flame consuming, but like thought unfolding. It bent upward, curling into circles within circles, forming something vast and deliberate. The arena itself seemed to bow in recognition. From within the gate stepped a figure. His silhouette was human, but his presence was not. A long crimson cloak billowed in a wind that wasn't there. Golden runes pulsed along its edges, shimmering with every movement. His eyes burned with calculation, not fury. He was not here to conquer or to test strength, but to measure purpose. Hal's ring reacted instantly, identifying energy signatures older than any known dimension. Sorcery detected, it whispered across his neural link. Yugi's puzzle trembled, its golden light resonating like a tuning fork. He carries the weight of many worlds. The stranger raised his hand. Light coalesced between his fingers into a pattern of circles and geometric lines, spinning like celestial machinery. His voice was calm, layered with echoes that overlapped each other, each word translating itself into a dozen languages before reaching their ears. This dimension is changing too quickly. The laws here were meant to evolve slowly, not be rewritten overnight. Hal stepped forward, green light surrounding him like a shield. Who are you to judge evolution? The stranger's gaze turned toward him, sharp, dissecting. A guardian of consequences. Call me Dr. Strange. The name itself carried resonance. Yugi recognized it instinctively, not as a person, but as a force. A magician who had once held back dimensions from devouring one another. The puzzle warmed, responding with an equal and opposite frequency, like two minds recognizing one another across impossible distance. Hal's armor glowed brighter. Another guardian, another teacher with a warning. Not a warning, Strange said, walking closer. A reminder. Every balance you create becomes imbalance elsewhere. He gestured to the sky, and for a moment, they saw reflections of countless worlds, some bright and thriving, others fractured, bleeding into darkness. The ripple of your defiance has touched all corners of reality. Yugi looked up, his voice quiet. Then why come here alone? Why not bring your gods to stop us? Because, Strange replied, they're watching what happens when mortals touch eternity. It's not war they fear, it's understanding. The words hung heavy between them. The air hummed as the arena responded to his presence. The ground rearranged itself into spiraling runes, lines of magic intersecting with the remnants of lantern light and dual energy. Hal clenched his fists. If you came to undo what we've done, you'll have to fight both of us. Yugi's puzzle flared, the eye of Horus opening at its center. And if you came to learn, then you'll have to risk everything. Doctor Strange smiled faintly, not in arrogance, but acceptance. Then let's begin. The arena roared back to life. Reality folded inward, creating a sphere of layered illusion and energy. Hal's constructs formed instantly. Colossal gears of green light, orbiting like satellites, each representing a concept of will. Yugi summoned spirits, cards dissolving into shimmering phantoms. Dark magician, magician of black chaos, and the ethereal form of the Egyptian god Slifer, coiled faintly in the storm. Strange raised both hands, drawing sigils in midair so quickly that the symbols bled into continuous motion. The glyphs exploded outward, weaving together into mirror dimensions that swallowed the arena whole. Suddenly, Hal and Yugi found themselves floating in a place with no up or down. The stars bent in on themselves, reflections of reflections. Time here moved like breath, slow, deliberate, sentient. Strange's voice came from every direction. You're still thinking in terms of enemies and allies. The true test is alignment. How long your minds can stay intact while your realities overlap. The first assault came not from his hands, but from thought itself. Memories twisted. Hal's fear of failure resurfaced, his father's crash replaying on endless loop. Yugi's doubt returned, the darkness of the pharaoh's judgment whispering in his ear. The arena amplified every insecurity, every fracture of the soul, and forced it into being. Hal roared, igniting his ring to full output. His constructs exploded outward, shattering fragments of illusion. Yugi countered with a chant from the puzzle, summoning shields of memory, the bonds of friendship, laughter, forgiveness, small lights that resisted despair. Doctor Strange observed from above, his expression unreadable. Good. You remember who you are, now remember what that means. The illusions changed again. No longer pain, now temptation. Hal stood on Oa, hearing the Guardians promise him omniscient control if he just surrendered free will. Yugi found himself before the Pharaoh's throne once more, offered eternal dominion over shadow and light alike. For a moment both faltered. Then Hal looked up through the illusion toward Yugi's light and said, "We already made that choice." Yugi smiled faintly. And we'd make it again. Their energies resonated. The ring's green radiance merged with the puzzle's gold, creating a new hue. Emerald flame, stable and infinite. The mirror dimension cracked. Strange's hands trembled as the energy fed back into his own constructs. He dropped to one knee, eyes glowing with astonishment. You, harmonized will and soul. You've done what sorcerers have sought for eons. Yugi floated closer, the puzzle dimming to a warm pulse. We didn't conquer. We aligned. The mirrors shattered completely, returning them to the arena. The desert was gone. Now they stood in the void between worlds. Stars above, stars below. Silence absolute. Doctor Strange rose slowly, his cloak settled behind him, alive and watching. "This place," he said softly, "is not meant to exist, but perhaps it must." Hal nodded. "You came to test us. What's your verdict?" Strange studied them for a long moment. Then he smiled, not the smile of a victor, but of a scholar who's found something new to believe in. "Verdict? No. Invitation." He opened his palm. A fragment of light, blue, spinning endlessly, floated between them. Every reality needs defenders who aren't bound by its borders. You've both proven that balance doesn't belong to one universe. Join me. Learn what lies beyond your gods. Yugi's eyes met Hal's. "If we step through, there's no going back." Hal smiled. "Good. I've had enough of going back." Strange turned, drawing a circle of fire in the void. Through it they saw not one world, but many, each flickering with its own stories, its own impossible laws. The arena pulsed once as if in approval, and together they stepped forward into the infinite question that awaited beyond. They stepped through the fire, and the first thing they lost was sound. There was no wind, no breath, no heartbeats. The space beyond the gate wasn't absence, it was intention before existence. A canvas not yet painted, waiting for ideas to remember themselves. Hal tried to speak, but the ring translated his thought instead. "Where are we?" Doctor Strange's reply came without words. Between definitions, the multiverse dreams here. The stars above were not suns, they were possibilities. Each shimmered like a heartbeat, blinking into form when noticed, fading when ignored. Yugi felt them as whispers in his mind, the same murmur he heard whenever he drew a card whose meaning he did not yet understand. The puzzle vibrated softly, aware that even its magic was a primitive dialect in this place. They walked across nothing, and the nothing shaped itself into ground simply because they believed it should. Hal looked around. "Feels like the arena followed us." Doctor Strange nodded, his cloak fluttering, although no air moved. "It never left. It's older than time, a mirror built by the first thought that wanted to see itself. It takes whatever form you give it. For me, it's the sanctum between worlds. For you, it is the impossible made visible." The space flickered, and for an instant the desert returned, then vanished again, replaced by a grand staircase made of light that ascended into a sun that wasn't there. Yugi whispered, "So this is where stories go when they end?" "No," Strange said. "This is where they begin again." They climbed the stairs, and with each step, the stars rearranged, telling fragments of memory. Yugi saw his friends laughing after duels that had nearly broken them. Hal saw the Green Lantern Corps rebuilding the shattered cities of Oa. But both also saw darker reflections, moments that never happened but could have, worlds where failure had been final. "Each possibility you refused still exists," Strange said. "Every choice you make here adds weight to all others. Do not think yourselves heroes. You are editors of causality." The words struck deep. Yugi slowed his pace. "If everything we do creates another contradiction, then what's the point of choosing?" Strange turned toward him. "Because without contradiction, choice means nothing." Hal exhaled slowly. "You're saying we're doomed to never get it perfectly right?" "Exactly," Strange said. "But you'll keep trying. That's what keeps the multiverse from collapsing." They reached the top of the staircase, and suddenly everything inverted. The stars became eyes, colossal, watching, endless. The three stood upon a platform suspended in cosmic judgment. Before them rose a figure of scale so vast that comprehension bent around it. 3 faces upon a single head, each representing balance, vengeance, and mercy. The living tribunal. Even Strange lowered his gaze. "We stand before the ultimate arbitrator of cosmic law," he said quietly. Hal clenched his jaw. "We've had enough judges." The central face turned toward him, voice resonating through every atom of existence. "Then why do you keep seeking them?" Hal's ring dimmed. Yugi's puzzle flickered uncertainly. "You alter realities with conviction, yet every act of creation carries arrogance. Do you understand the cost of defiance?" Dr. Strange knelt. "They acted not out of arrogance, but necessity. The arena called them." The tribunal's left face, the one of mercy, leaned forward. "The arena is not a place. It is a will. It selects those who remember that limits can be rewritten." Yugi raised his head. "Then it's testing us still. Always must." The right face, vengeance intoned. "For only those who can bear infinite judgment may shape finite worlds." The tribunal extended a hand, and in its palm appeared spheres of reality, tiny universes, spinning wildly. One by one, they opened, revealing fragments of what Hal and Yugi had done. Planets reborn, some thriving, some broken, all connected by invisible threads. "You have created harmony where none existed," the central voice continued. "But you have also taught rebellion to realities unprepared for it." Hal stepped forward. "So what's the verdict?" "Verdict!" The tribunal's tone rippled through infinity. "There is no verdict, only escalation." Its hand opened, and the spheres fused into a single burning mass. From its center, something screamed, not pain, but awakening. Energy flared out in impossible colors, bending through time and causality. Dr. Strange's cloak flared defensively. "It's manifesting." The light condensed into form. A being of pure paradox, faceless, genderless, made of logic that defied itself. It looked at them and spoke in a voice that sounded like their own, multiplied. "I am the consequence. You built me." Yugi instinctively raised the puzzle. "What are you?" "Everything that happens when you stop believing in endings." Hal's ring scanned it and immediately failed. "No data, no matter signature. It's conceptual," Strange finished. "A living contradiction." The consequence lifted its hand, and the void around them shattered into reflections of their choices. Thousands of Yugi and Hal duplicates appeared, some heroes, some tyrants, some gods, some corpses. Each moved with its own will, its own logic. "You made balance recursive," the consequence said. "Now balance makes you redundant." The duplicates began to converge. Light and shadow collided, folding into the center where the real Yugi and Hal stood. The tribunal remained still, observing. "Strange," Hal said through gritted teeth. "What's the play?" "There isn't one," Strange replied, eyes glowing with realization. "It's absorbing cause and effect itself. The only way out is to let it understand us, without fighting." But Hal had never been good at surrender. His aura flared, green energy surging outward like a supernova. "Understanding doesn't stop annihilation," Yugi touched his arm. "But compassion might." He stepped forward, facing the storm of their own contradictions. The puzzle glowed pure gold, humming like a heart that refused to die. "We accept what we've done," he said. "The mistakes, the miracles, the chaos. If that's what you are, then we made you because we needed you." The consequence paused. The thousands of reflections froze mid-motion. Its featureless face tilted slightly, like a being hearing something for the first time. "Needed?" it repeated. "Why?" Yugi smiled faintly. Because without consequence, meaning is just noise. Hal stepped beside him, lowering his guard. And without noise, there's no song. The storm of reflections began to fade. The light softened, turning from violent brilliance to gentle dawn. The consequences form, dissolved into dust, each particle becoming a new star, drifting into the endless dark. The tribunal's voices spoke as one. You have reminded existence of its humility. Go, keep it alive. But know this, every victory breeds its next challenger. Doctor Strange turned, the corners of his mouth curling in quiet pride. You've both done what the mystics of countless ages could not. You gave consequence mercy. Hal smirked. So, class dismissed? Hardly, Strange replied. The arena is listening again. Yugi looked down. The ground beneath them was no longer void. It had become a colossal chessboard, stretching to the horizon, pieces moving on their own, some of light, some of darkness. Each move they made rippled outward into entire realities. The arena whispered through them, voice soft but infinite. The next game has already begun, and somewhere across the multiverse, a familiar hum of energy stirred, a voice both human and divine, a spark of emerald light, a whisper of a dual spirit, a name neither of them had ever known, but would soon have to face. I am Paradox, and I play for keeps. The stars dimmed. The chessboard reset. The arena prepared for the next impossible battle. The stars rearranged themselves. Each shimmer snapped into a grid, lines of light and shadow stretching endlessly across the void. Every square pulsed with a heartbeat. Some beat slow and red, others fast and blue, some steady as law, others erratic as sin. The arena had become something both mathematical and alive, a battlefield made of meaning. Hal's boots touched the board first. It felt solid but uncertain, like standing on probability. His ring flickered, analyzing and failing to comprehend the structure. Energy reading fluctuates every second, he muttered. It's rewriting its own physics. Doctor Strange's cloak floated gently, its eyes narrowing as if watching an old friend take a new form. It's not rewriting, he said softly. It's playing. A shape appeared across the board. It wasn't summoned. It condensed, as if every possibility in the multiverse decided to form a body just to look at them. The figure's face was a shifting mosaic of other faces, ancient, young, male, female, alien, divine. Every time one blinked, a new one replaced it. Its armor was made of broken clocks and mirrored chess pieces. Its eyes burned with the light of collapsing galaxies. When it spoke, every voice that had ever declared victory whispered in its tone. I am Paradox. I was born when the past ate the future. The arena pulsed in agreement, its voice interlacing with Paradox's. You made the law of balance. He is its countermeasure. Hal raised his ring, green energy forming into a shield. We've beaten gods, titans, and ideas. What's one more equation with an ego? Paradox smiled, and the smile appeared on every square of the board. Then play. The ground shifted. Yugi felt the puzzle flare to life. Strange's runes lit up. 1,000 cards materialized in the air around them. Glowing constellations of dual energy fused with lantern constructs. Hal's ring recognized them as tactical nodes. Strange saw them as spell matrices. Yugi saw them as monsters waiting to breathe. Paradox gestured, and the game began. Each move was not made with a hand, but with thought. When Yugi imagined a creature, it appeared. Dark magician girl, descending on wings of starlight, her staff crackling with energy. When Hal envisioned defense, an emerald rook manifested, a fortress of willpower surrounded by blades of light. When Strange plotted, time itself froze and reversed, his bishops walking both forward and backward across the field simultaneously. Paradox countered effortlessly. Where Yugi played courage, Paradox responded with inevitability. Where Hal played strength, Paradox answered with entropy. Where Strange played intellect, Paradox mirrored his logic until the magician was arguing with himself in two timelines at once. Within minutes, or centuries, time no longer obeyed. They realized this was not just a duel. It was the evolution of conflict itself. Each piece moved not to destroy, but to rewrite its opponent's reason for moving. Yugi gritted his teeth. Every strategy we make, he's already calculated. Strange's eyes burned gold, then stopped being predictable. Hal raised his ring, smirking despite the chaos. Predictable me? Watch this! He launched into the air, breaking the rule of the game entirely. The board roared in protest, squares flashing in disapproval. But Hal's constructs followed him, reshaping themselves into a glowing green dragon that dove straight into Paradox's flank. The impact shattered dozens of tiles, each one collapsing into miniature black holes. From the darkness, spectral hands reached out, fragments of lost realities, the ghosts of decisions never made. They grabbed Hal, dragging him into the event horizon. Yugi's voice cut through the void. No! The puzzle flared open, light bursting across dimensions. He threw a card into the abyss. Monster reborn. The symbol glowed like a sun. From within the singularity, the green light reignited. Hal erupted from the dark, reborn, his aura now tinged gold from Yugi's spell energy. Okay, Hal breathed, hovering beside them again. That was new. Strange smiled faintly. Multiversal hybridization. Lantern energy fused with dual magic. Keep it stable. Paradox tilted its head, curious. You fuse, you adapt, you refuse entropy. Admirable. But what happens when fusion meets itself? It raised both hands. The chessboard dissolved into mist, then split into two identical arenas, overlapping each other, one existing half a second ahead of the other. In one, Hal moved. In the other, he hadn't yet. In one, Yugi shouted. In the other, his mouth was closed. Cause and effect lost sequence. Strange groaned, clutching his head. He's collapsed temporal logic. He's turned our thoughts into superpositions. Yugi's voice echoed twice out of sync. Then we think as one. The puzzle expanded, the eye of Horus, burning across the entire void. Hal's ring synchronized with its rhythm, translating instinct into calculation. Strange added his runes to the resonance, shaping equations around faith. Three energies intertwined, emerald, gold, crimson, coiling around one another like serpents finding harmony. The result wasn't chaos. It was symphony. The doubled boards flickered, phased, then rejoined with a thunderous crack that echoed across dimensions. Paradox staggered. For the first time, it looked uncertain. Impossible, it whispered. You've synchronized will, magic, and memory. No trinity sustains equilibrium that long. Hal grinned. Guess we didn't get the memo. He and Yugi moved together, launching a joint attack. A manifestation of combined force. The Emerald Pharaoh. A being of living light wielding a staff that glowed with every victory humanity had ever earned. The creature charged. Paradox raised both hands, summoning an army of shadows. Every version of the heroes that had ever failed. Infinite reflections clashed. The collision created a detonation that tore open the walls of the arena, exposing the raw code of existence. Colors no eyes had seen. Sounds no soul could hear. Through it all, Doctor Strange floated still, eyes closed. His lips moved silently. Then he raised one finger, drew a circle, and time paused. Hal and Yugi froze mid-strike. Paradox hung mid-thought. Only Strange moved, walking across the suspended battlefield, his cloak trailing through frozen starlight. He placed his hand on Paradox's chest. "I understand now," he murmured. "You are not our enemy. You are the echo that ensures no perfection goes untested." Paradox's eyes flickered, confused. Strange continued, "You don't end stories. You remind them to keep going." He withdrew his hand. Time resumed. The detonation that should have destroyed them all instead reversed. Light imploding inward, folding into a single point that collapsed into silence. Paradox stood, its body flickering. "You have learned the lesson." Yugi stepped forward. "And the lesson is that even the impossible must evolve." The being dissolved into glass fragments, each piece reflecting a future they could no longer see. The arena, satisfied, rumbled like a living heart. Doctor Strange turned to Hal and Yugi. "It's over." Hal shook his head. "No, not yet." He pointed upward. In the sky above the empty board, a new rift was forming. But this one was red, pulsing, hungry. Strange frowned. "That's not Paradox." Yugi's puzzle dimmed in dread. "Then who?" The arena's voice trembled, as if even it felt fear. "He calls himself the Collector of Laws." Hal's jaw tightened. "Sounds like a lawyer from hell." "No," Strange said grimly. "Worse. He's the one who devours stories once they're finished." The rift widened. Something vast began to emerge. A silhouette wearing chains made of forgotten timelines, its shadow covering galaxies. The arena shuddered. And thus the next impossible battle began, before the last one had truly ended. The rift widened until the void itself began to tremble. Stars dimmed, galaxies slowed, and light hesitated to move forward, as though afraid of being written into permanence. Then, from the wound in existence, the Collector of Laws stepped through. He did not walk so much as rearrange reality with every stride. Chains of frozen time hung from his body, each link engraved with a story's ending. The death of a hero, the fall of an empire, the final page of every forgotten legend. His face was neither man nor god, but the mask of inevitability. Where his eyes should have been, there were two infinite scrolls unrolling and re-rolling in endless motion, writing and erasing the history of worlds simultaneously. When he spoke, it was not sound but conclusion. "This narrative has run beyond its purpose. All that continues without closure threatens the symmetry of existence." Hal raised his ring, but it dimmed. Not from fear, but from contradiction. The energy that powered it depended on will, and will meant choice, and choice meant open stories. This being was the enemy of continuation itself. Doctor Strange's voice was low, calm, but edged with awe. "He's not here to destroy us. He's here to erase uncertainty, to freeze the multiverse into a completed thought." The Collector's scroll eyes turned toward him. "There must be balance. You have birthed infinite potential. Infinite potential breeds infinite paradox. Entropy must be constrained by conclusion." Yugi clutched the puzzle. It pulsed erratically, its ancient magic flickering between light and shadow. "You can't erase possibility," he said, his voice steady despite the shaking air. "If stories stop, meaning dies." "Meaning," said the Collector, "is the illusion mortals build to tolerate chaos. I am mercy. I am the silence after the last word." The arena itself whimpered, a soundless tremor, like a heart struggling to beat under crushing gravity. Doctor Strange spread his hands, symbols of fire and geometry spiraling around him. Then we fight not for survival, but for continuation. The collector raised one arm, and the scrolls of his eyes unrolled across the void, blank pages fluttering. Each page caught light, and wherever it did, something vanished. A star, a creature, a dream. Entire realities flickered out like candles in a storm. Hal's ring blazed green again, brighter than it ever had, defying the pull of finality. Over my dead story! He launched himself upward, forming an emerald blade larger than a planet. He swung, and the blade shattered against the collector's calm gaze. Every piece of the broken construct froze midair, transforming into tiny glowing letters. Fragments of will. Names of every lantern who had ever lived. The collector reached out, and the letters dissolved on his touch. Will fades, law remains. Hal fell, tumbling through collapsing constellations. Yugi caught him mid-descent, the puzzle glowing bright enough to cast shadows on eternity. You don't get to decide how things end, he said, summoning his deck. The cards lifted around him like orbiting planets, ancient hieroglyphs blazing. Then let your defiance write its own epitaph, the collector murmured. Yugi threw his hand forward. Dark Magician emerged, immense, regal, his staff glowing with cosmic energy. But when he struck, the collector didn't defend. He simply edited. The magician froze in mid-motion, turned sepia, and faded into parchment dust. Doctor Strange caught the residue in his palm. His eyes burned crimson. He's rewriting matter as narrative. He sees existence as text. He snapped his fingers. The symbols around him ignited, each rune a spell written in paradox. Then we'll speak a language he can't edit, time folded. Strange duplicated himself, one in every possible second of existence. Each incarnation whispered a syllable, forming a mantra that spanned all timelines at once. The collector paused for the first time, uncertain. The mantra changed the nature of the pages around them. Words began to refuse erasure. Hal rejoined them, bruised but burning. You stalled him. Let's push. The ring projected a sphere of green flame around the trio. Yugi channeled his puzzle into the same rhythm, feeding soul energy into it, while Strange bound the construct with sigils drawn from before language itself. For a moment, their combined field held. The pages of oblivion slowed their advance. But the collector only smiled. Three voices cannot outshout the silence that birthed them. He spread his arms, and the chains of his body came alive. Hundreds, thousands, lashing outward, each tipped with an ending. The links screamed with the echoes of final words, the end. Amen. Game over. Finis. They struck. The trio held. Each chain that touched the shield burned away a layer of self. Hal lost moments of childhood. Yugi forgot the smell of Domino City after rain. Strange forgot the names of spells that once saved universes. But their energy did not break. It remembered forward. Hal roared, summoning every lantern oath ever spoken. In brightest day and blackest night, Yugi joined in, the words blending with his own creed. My friend's hope guides me, even through shadow. Strange completed it, his voice ancient and weary, and knowledge endures beyond erasure. Their combined voices carved through the chains like sound through silence. The collector staggered. The scrolls of his eyes flickered. For the first time, his expression faltered. You persist? Doctor Strange's cloak unfurled, glowing brighter than the void. "You misunderstand the nature of stories," he said softly. "They don't end. They evolve." Yugi's puzzle expanded until it filled the sky, its eye blazing with cosmic awareness. "You don't erase endings, you change them." Hal pointed his ring straight at the being's chest. "Let me show you what change feels like." The emerald beam fired, but it wasn't destruction. It was transformation. The beam struck the collector and, instead of burning, it wrote. Symbols spiraled across his chains, rewriting their purpose from closure to continuation. Each shackle became a sentence fragment, every link a comma, every scroll a page waiting to turn. The being screamed, not in pain, but in awakening. "What have you done?" Doctor Strange floated closer. "We gave you what you never had, an unfinished thought." The collector fell to one knee, hands clutching at his own rewriting body. "I can't end." "Good," Hal said grimly. "Now you get to live with us." The being looked up, fear and awe mixing in its voice. "I see now. The mercy and imperfection." The arena shook, its light returning to crimson, giving way to gold. The rift sealed. The stars resumed their movement. The collector stood smaller now, his voice no longer an edict but a whisper. "You have undone silence, may your noise never stop." He dissolved into light, scattering into every universe that still had stories left to tell. Hal collapsed, exhausted. "We actually won." Yugi smiled weakly. "We didn't win, we just kept it going." Strange looked upward, his expression calm but knowing. "Then our work will never end." The arena pulsed once like a satisfied heartbeat. Its voice, vast and gentle, filled the quiet. "And that, heroes, is the only victory worth having." The board faded. The stars drifted. The endless became alive again. And beyond sight, another gate flickered open. Smaller, distant, waiting. Because in the arena of the impossible, every ending is only the beginning of the next impossible story. The stars stopped moving again. But this time, it wasn't silence, it was anticipation. The arena shimmered, and from its heart, a small, trembling gate of white light began to bloom. It was different from all the others. No energy storms, no thunder, no pressure of gods watching from beyond. It was quiet, intimate, like the breath of a newborn world. Hal approached first, his armor dim but alive, the faint hum of the ring syncing with his pulse. "Feels different." Doctor Strange's eyes narrowed. "It is. This isn't another realm. It's beneath all realms." Yugi's puzzle glowed softly in his hands. "Then this is the source?" "The storycore," Strange said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Where imagination first learned to become." The gate opened. They stepped through. The transition wasn't violent. It was like remembering something beautiful you didn't know you had forgotten. Suddenly, they stood on a floor made of light, a horizon with no up or down, no forward or backward. Symbols floated in the air like dust motes, every letter of every alphabet ever written. The air vibrated with possibilities. Each breath carried meaning. Each heartbeat generated a word. Hal knelt, brushing his hand against the glowing surface. "This place, it's alive." "It's not alive," Strange replied, gazing into the distance. "It's awareness itself." Yugi closed his eyes, the puzzle pulsing in time with the rhythm of the core. "It feels like someone watching, but not with eyes, more like with hope." Then a voice spoke. But it wasn't the arena. It wasn't godlike or booming or ancient. It was gentle, human. "Welcome back, my storytellers." The three froze. The voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere, the tone shifting subtly. sometimes feminine, sometimes masculine, sometimes neither, like a memory trying to decide what form it wanted to take. Hal scanned the air. Identify yourself. I am the beginning that never ends. I am the ink before the word. I am the first story that imagined you. Doctor Strange lowered his head slightly. It's the source itself, the architect. The light shimmered, forming a faint silhouette, no face, no body, just suggestion. You fought for continuation, and you won. But do you understand what you've continued? Yugi stepped forward. Freedom, choice, the right for stories to never be caged. The figure smiled faintly, though it had no mouth. And yet every story depends on a cage to be understood. You cannot read a book that never ends, nor feel joy without the threat of silence. Hal's fists clenched. So, you're saying this was all scripted? Scripted, no. Inspired, yes. I write the framework, but you fill it. I give you the brush, but you paint the worlds. The floor of light pulsed beneath them, shifting like a heartbeat. Doctor Strange's tone softened. So the arena wasn't punishment. It was education. Understanding is born only through contradiction, the voice said. You created balance, paradox, consequence, continuation. All pieces of me reintroduced to themselves. Yugi looked around at the glowing letters floating through the air. They drifted like snowflakes, landing gently on his hands. Each one showed fragments of their journey. Kratos clashing with Doraemon, Ghost Rider burning through the Warhammer universe, Paradox collapsing timelines. I see them, Yugi whispered. Every impossible story we've lived. They live because you believed they could, the architect replied. Every what if you imagined made another universe possible. Hal stood, looking directly into the blinding light. So what happens now? Do we just stay here? No, you return, because the arena was never meant to contain you. It was meant to teach creation to outgrow me. The three exchanged glances. Doctor Strange was the first to understand. It's giving us authorship. Authorship, said the voice. And accountability. You will shape the next layer of reality, one that even I cannot predict. Yugi felt his chest tighten, a strange mix of awe and sorrow. If we leave, will we ever come back here? Every time you imagine, every time you dream, the letters in the air began to swirl faster, gathering into streams of light that circled the trio. They weren't being erased. They were being written out. Hal laughed under his breath. So this is what happens when you beat the game. You become the code. Doctor Strange smiled faintly. No, you become the storyteller. The light grew brighter. Their forms began to dissolve into pure idea. Not death, not loss, but elevation. Each of them became a phrase, a concept, a spark. Yugi became belief through trial. Hal became will in motion. Strange became knowledge with humility. The architect's voice softened, and together you become what the multiverse needs most. Imagination that refuses to stop. The floor of light rippled outward one last time, transforming into a wave that shot through the infinite layers of reality. Everywhere it touched, dormant universes awoke. Half-written stories found endings, and abandoned worlds regained breath. When the wave faded, the core was silent again. Only a faint whisper remained, echoing across all creation. Arena of the Impossible. Reset complete. Ready for next story. And somewhere far away, on a planet that looked almost like Earth, a young child sat before a blank page, pencil in hand, whispering to himself. What if the pencil touched the paper? Light shimmered between the lines, and in that instant the arena opened again. not above or below, but within. The cycle continued. Because stories like souls never die, they just find new voices to tell them.